Welcome to Starbound. My name is Gabriel the Bibi Capaldi, and I'll be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories, including brand new episodes of Sunspire Academy and Frerin and Rimiki. If you'd like to unlock early access and support new episodes and future series, tap join below to become a Starbound member. Now, let's get into today's story. Ambassador Anya Petrova stood before the imposing entrance of the Ethelgard station, the metallic tang of recycled air mixing with the lingering scent of ion thrusters from her diplomatic shuttle. Her emerald-green ceremonial robes, embroidered with the subtle golden thread of Earth's diplomatic corps, billowed slightly in the artificial breeze from the docking bay's atmospheric stabilizers. The fabric caught the harsh station lighting, transforming the simple garment into something almost regal, and utterly conspicuous among the armored delegates filing through security. The checkpoint ahead buzzed with activity as representatives from 12 different species donned their various forms of combat armor. A new mandate following 3 bombing attempts in the last month. Security personnel moved with practiced efficiency, scanning and clearing each delegate with grim determination. Anya brushed a strand of auburn hair from her face and straightened her posture. The weight of Earth's interests rested on her shoulders, but unlike the delegates around her, she carried no physical weight of protective gear. The decision had been controversial even among her own staff, but she had been adamant. Some traditions were worth preserving, especially when they doubled as strategy. Security Chief Corvus Lentari approached with purposeful strides, a hard case containing standard-issue diplomatic armor clutched in his 3-fingered hand. The Thraxian's metallic blue scales caught the light as he moved, covering every inch of his body except his face, where piercing amber eyes narrowed upon seeing her. He froze mid-stride when he realized Anya had brought no armor of her own.
"Ambassador Petrova,"
he said, his translator rendering his native clicking speech into a deep, resonant standard.
"There must be some misunderstanding. The security directive was distributed to all delegations 2 weeks ago."
He hefted the hard case.
"I've brought appropriate protection for human physiology."
Anya smiled diplomatically but shook her head. "There's no misunderstanding, Chief Lentari. In the tradition of Terra's ancient peace summits, I come unarmored, to demonstrate trust and honest intention." The station's AI security systems immediately flagged her as non-compliant, bathing her in red scanning beams that traced her silhouette. Corvus's gill slits flared in agitation, the blue membranes darkening to navy.
"Ambassador, with respect to your cultural practices, the directive is non-negotiable,"
he said, lowering his voice.
"After the Proxima bombing, the Council authorized emergency security protocols. No exceptions."
"I understand the Council's concerns," Anya replied, maintaining her smile despite the scanning beams making her skin tingle uncomfortably. "But Earth has maintained this practice through far worse crises. When the Ontari Confederation threatened orbital bombardment of our colonies, Earth's representatives still came unarmored to negotiations. It's not merely tradition, Chief Lentari, it's policy." The security checkpoint had grown quiet, other delegations and staff turning to observe the unfolding situation. Corvus's scales rippled in a pattern that Anya recognized as the Thraxian equivalent of a frustrated sigh.
"Then I must escalate this to station administration,"
he said, tapping a command sequence into his wrist interface.
"Please remain here."
Before he could complete the transmission, the docking bay doors cycled open with a pressurized hiss. Magister Drell Harvoth, the Shalari representative and key figure in the upcoming trade route negotiations, emerged from his shuttle already encased in ceremonial battle plate that gleamed with iridescent purples and blues. The armor was as much art as protection, inscribed with the ancient trade runes of his people, but its beauty didn't diminish its deadly functionality. Harvoth's crest feathers bristled visibly even through his helmet upon seeing the unarmored human. He approached with the distinctive gait of a Shalari noble, each step precisely measured. "What is the meaning of this delay?" he demanded, his translator rendering his harmonic speech into clipped standard. His gaze fell on Anya, helmet sensors visibly scanning her unprotected form. "Arrogance or foolishness, either is becoming of a species seeking the Interstellar Trade Commission's favor." Other delegations had begun to gather, creating a spectrum of shimmering defensive tech that contrasted sharply with Anya's vulnerable form. The Meridian contingent, in their liquid metal encasements that flowed like quicksilver over their elongated bodies, the Throthian ambassador Keel, whose species had evolved from apex predators, wore minimal armor that emphasized rather than concealed his natural bone ridges. The Galorn representatives, with their photosynthetic skin barely visible beneath heavy environmental suits designed to filter out potential biological contaminants.
The human ambassador insists on adhering to a cultural practice that conflicts with current security protocols,
Corvus explained, his professional tone not quite masking his irritation. Harvoth's helmet retracted slightly, revealing a face covered in fine purple feathers and eyes like polished obsidian. "We all have cultural practices, Ambassador Petrova. Mine includes surviving diplomatic missions." A ripple of translator-delayed laughter moved through some of the assembled delegates. "Station security has been compromised 3 times in recent months," Harvoth continued. "The protocols exist for a reason." "I'm well aware of the situation, Magister," Anya replied, meeting his gaze directly, a calculated risk with a Shalari, whose culture viewed sustained eye contact as either a challenge or intimate familiarity, "and I grieve for the lives lost in those attacks. But human history has taught us that sometimes vulnerability creates opportunities that armor prevents." Before Harvoth could respond, another figure pushed through the growing crowd. Station Administrator Eliana Nor, herself human but following station protocols in light assault gear, arrived with the practiced urgency of someone accustomed to diffusing diplomatic incidents before they escalated to interstellar incidents. "Ambassador Petrova," she said, her voice warm but her expression tense. "A word, please." She guided Anya several meters away from the gathered delegates, her armor making soft hydraulic sounds with each movement. "Anya," she said quietly, dropping formal titles once they were out of immediate earshot. "What the hell are you doing? We have credible intelligence suggesting the Starlight Purge has infiltrated the station. Their manifesto specifically mentions disrupting these negotiations. You're making yourself a target." Anya kept her expression neutral, aware they were still being observed. "Eliana, you know as well as I do that we need to do what we must to get what we need. It's how Earth secured favorable treaties with the Ontari despite being outgunned. It's how we negotiated mining rights in the Tau Ceti system when every analyst predicted we'd be shut out." "This isn't about mining rights," Eliana hissed. "The last attack killed 14 people, including 2 human technicians." "And I mourn them," Anya said firmly. "But ask yourself, did their armor save them, or did it simply give them the illusion of safety?" She softened her tone. "The Cygnus corridor negotiations have stalled for 3 years. Earth needs this trade route access, and if my standing here without 30 kilos of composite plating helps secure it, then that's a calculated risk I'm authorized to take." Administrator Nor studied her for a long moment, the tactical display on her armor's collar flickering with incoming security updates. Finally, she nodded once, sharply. "On your head be it, Ambassador," she said, "but I'm assigning you additional security personnel. As long as they maintain appropriate distance during the formal negotiations," Anya conceded. Administrator Nor turned back to the assembled delegates and security personnel. "Chief Lentari, Ambassador Petrova has diplomatic clearance Alpha 7 from Earth Central. Log the protocol exception and proceed with the delegation escort." Corvus's gill slits flared once more, but he nodded stiffly.
Logged. Ambassador Petrova remains personally responsible for any consequences of non-compliance with safety directives.
Always, Anya said with a slight bow of her head. The delegation proceeded from the docking area towards the central forum, moving through Ethelgard's sweeping corridors under heightened security. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, a massive orbital platform constructed at the conjunction of 3 major trade routes, its architecture incorporating elements from 17 different species' design philosophies. The soaring arches would have seemed delicate if not for the visible reinforcement of molecular-bonded titanium alloys, beauty and function intertwined. Anya's unarmored presence created a visible disturbance in the carefully choreographed ceremonial procession. Security drones hovered closer to her position, their sensors constantly scanning. The delegates themselves maintained a subtle distance, their formations adapting around her like water flowing around a stone. Whispers spread through the assembled representatives, some seeing suicidal recklessness, others profound disrespect for station security, while a few recognized it as a calculated diplomatic maneuver. The Throthian ambassador Keel, whose species valued boldness, subtly nodded approval as they walked, while the hypercautious Meridian contingent physically distanced themselves from her, their liquid metal armor rippling with agitation.
"Your approach is noted, human,"
Ambassador Keel rumbled as they passed through a particularly grand archway, his voice low enough that only Anya and his immediate security detail could hear.
"My ancestors would approve. One cannot properly scent fear through armor."
"High praise from a Throthian," Anya replied with a respectful incline of her head. "I look forward to discussing the mutual defense provisions with your delegation." His bone ridges shifted in what she recognized as a gesture of posture acknowledgement before he moved ahead, taking his position in the procession. The central forum itself was Ethelgard's crown jewel, a vast chamber whose boundaries seemed to disappear into the stars themselves. One wall entirely transparent duralloy offering a breathtaking view of neighboring nebula. The chamber had been designed to humble, to remind delegates of the vastness of the universe they sought to divide and regulate with their treaties and trade agreements. The preliminary negotiations began with the formal recognition of all delegates and the traditional acknowledgement of the neutral status of Ethelgard Station. Procedural matters dominated the first hour: confirmation of agenda items, recognition of speaking order, and establishment of the recording protocols. Throughout it all, Anya remained acutely aware of her visibility, using the physical reality of her unarmored state to subtly reinforce her verbal contributions. When discussion finally turned to the contested shipping lane access through the Cygnus corridor, Anya rose to address the assembly. The simple act, standing unprotected before representatives of 12 spacefaring civilizations, created an immediate focus that even the most sophisticated attention-gathering technology couldn't replicate. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice clear and measured. "For 3 standard years, we have debated the merits of expanding access to the Cygnus corridor. For 3 years, we have exchanged the same concerns, the same assurances, and achieved the same result: stagnation." She moved from behind her assigned position, a subtle breach of formal protocol that caused several security drones to adjust their position in response. The risk was calculated, movement created engagement, and engagement was what Earth desperately needed. "The United Earth Government comes before you today not as a supplicant, but as a partner. The corridor's current throughput operates at 37% of its theoretical capacity. Our proposal would increase utilization to 62%, while reducing transmit times for all authorized users by an average of 23 standard hours per journey." She approached the central holographic display, calling up the transit simulation Earth's team had prepared. As the glowing routes materialized around her, she leveraged her unarmored state to become part of the presentation itself. The vulnerable human at the center of flowing trade routes, a visual metaphor for the position Earth sought in the greater galactic community. "What prevents us from moving forward is not logistics or technology," she continued, gesturing to specific junction points where the current restrictions created bottlenecks. It is trust. The Shalari Protectorate maintains priority access to preserve security. The Meridian Consortium restricts biological transport to prevent contamination. The Galorn Fellowship limits energy emissions to protect their sensor arrays. She turned slowly, making eye contact with the representatives of each named group. All legitimate concerns, all addressable through cooperation rather than restriction. She specifically addressed Magister Harvoth, whose attention she could feel despite his impassive expression. When we remove our armor, literally or figuratively, we create space for genuine understanding. Earth comes before you without physical protection because we believe that vulnerability, freely chosen, creates possibilities that no amount of defensive posture can achieve. The Shalari representative remained visibly unmoved, but several neutral parties showed signs of engagement. The Galorn representative's skin shifting to a more receptive hue, the Throthian delegation leaning forward slightly. Our proposal includes enhanced security protocols, biological containment standards that exceed current Meridian requirements, and energy-dampening technology that would create a sensor-silent corridor within Galorn detection grids. She gestured to specific sections of the holographic display, which highlighted each feature as she spoke. Most importantly, she concluded, it includes shared administration, genuine partnership rather than merely adjacent operation. We cannot build a safer galaxy by building higher walls between us. Earth stands before you, without armor, ready to... The station alarms blared without warning, cutting off her words. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in pulsing red as atmospheric containment fields engaged with an audible hum. The holographic display flickered and was replaced by a station schematic showing structural damage in adjacent sectors. Security breach in sectors 12 through 17, the station AI announced, its normally melodic voice flat with emergency protocols. All personnel implement safety measures. This is not a drill. The forum erupted into controlled chaos. Security personnel moved to predetermined positions while delegates activated various protective measures. Most modern armor systems engaged automatically, sealing helmets and activating defensive fields. Administrator Nor accessed a secure channel from her position near the chamber's main entrance. "Security feed to main display," she commanded. The holographic display shifted again, showing surveillance footage from a maintenance corridor. A figure in what appeared to be standard station coveralls was visible for only a moment before static consumed the image. Seconds later, another camera activated, showing the aftermath. A gaping hole in a bulkhead, emergency fire suppression systems activating as secondary explosions rippled through connected systems.
"Thermite charges,"
Chief Lentari's voice came through the emergency channel.
"Experimental composition. Burns hot enough to compromise structural integrity. Signatures match materials used in previous Starlight Purge attacks."
Harvoth's armor had fully engaged, his voice now projected through external speakers. The forum's primary exit routes compromised. Administrator Nor confirmed, her expression grim behind the helmet's transparent faceplate. Secondary routes are being secured. Atmosphere in connecting sections is unstable. Anya scanned the chamber, quickly assessing the situation. The central forum had been designed with security in mind. Multiple exit points, redundant life support, reinforced walls. But it had also been designed to be the heart of the station, connected to critical systems that now represented vulnerabilities. "Administrator," she called, moving towards Nor, "your armor's sensor suite. Can it detect abnormal motion in the maintenance shafts adjacent to this chamber?" Before Nor could respond, another explosion rocked the station, this one close enough that the impact reverberated through the forum floor. A section of the ceiling collapsed inward, debris cascading down into the chamber. Delegates scattered, their armor systems reacting to the threat with varying degrees of sophistication. The safety systems of most delegates' armor had engaged fully, transforming from flexible protection into rigid survival modes, paradoxically restricting movement as they became sealed survival pods designed to withstand even vacuum exposure. The Meridian representatives had been completely enclosed in solidified metal cocoons. The Galorn delegation was immobilized by protective gel that hardened on contact with detected contaminants in the air. The collapse had separated Anya from the main group, a wall of debris now between her and the others. She could hear Administrator Nor coordinating evacuation through the still-functioning communication system, but the most direct route was now blocked. Anya's diplomatic training had included basic military, emergency, and technical protocols just for occasions like this. She quickly assessed her options, scanning the chamber for alternative exits. A maintenance access panel was visible behind a dislodged decorative panel, the kind of detail she might never have noticed if her attention had been filtered through armor sensors focused on larger threats. Moving quickly, she navigated toward it, picking her way through smaller debris. The panel slid open with surprising ease, revealing a narrow service tunnel. Without bulky armor, she was able to slip through the opening and into the cramped passage beyond. The maintenance shaft was dimly lit by emergency lighting, barely wide enough for her to crawl through. The air held the acrid scent of burning circuitry and superheated metal. She moved as quickly as caution allowed, guided by the station's schematics she had studied during mission preparation. After several minutes of careful navigation through the increasingly warm tunnel, she heard voices ahead, a harsh whisper in a language her translator couldn't immediately identify. She slowed her approach, edging forward until she could peer through a ventilation grate into a small juncture chamber. A figure in maintenance coveralls was working at an exposed panel, connecting what appeared to be another explosive device to the station's environmental control systems. The operative wore a sleek helmet with a specialized breathing apparatus. Not standard station equipment, but something designed for covert operations. The distinctive insignia of the Starlight Purge was visible on their shoulder, a supernova rendered in blood red against black. Anya assessed the situation quickly. The operative was focused entirely on their task, confident that the previous explosions had secured their isolation. They clearly didn't expect anyone to have reached this section, especially not through the narrow maintenance tunnels that most armored personnel would find impassable. She considered her options. The terrorist was armed, a compact plasma pistol secured at their hip, and likely combat-trained. A direct confrontation would be suicidal, but allowing them to complete their work could potentially kill everyone in the forum and beyond. The operative made an adjustment to the device, then stepped back to check a reading on a wrist-mounted scanner. In that moment, Anya noticed a crucial detail. The stealth armor they wore was sophisticated, but its joints showed the telltale hydraulic cylinders of assisted movement. Military grade, with one significant vulnerability: the cooling system. With careful movements, she shifted position to access a small control panel for the section's thermal regulation. With quick, deliberate commands, she overrode the safety protocols and diverted excess heat from adjacent systems into the junction chamber's thermal vents. The effect wasn't immediate, but within moments, the temperature in the chamber began to rise noticeably. The operative paused in their work, helmet turning as they scanned for the source of the anomaly. Their movements became slightly stiffer as their armor's cooling system struggled to compensate. Anya waited until the heat had built to uncomfortable levels before making her next move. Using the edge of her diplomatic credentials card, the only semi-rigid item she carried, she carefully loosened the grate fasteners. The noise was minimal, masked by the increasing hum of overtaxed systems in the junction. The terrorists had returned to their work, movements now visibly affected by the rising temperature. Sweat beaded on the exposed skin around their breathing apparatus, their attention divided between the device and the environmental alerts their suit was undoubtedly triggering. In one fluid motion, Anya pushed the grate open and dropped into the junction chamber, immediately moving to the main coolant valve near the operative. Before they could fully register her presence, she twisted the valve shut, then snapped it off at the stem. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic for the operative. Their armor's cooling system, already strained by the ambient heat, lost all external support. The joint servos immediately began emergency lockdown procedures to prevent overheating damage to the wearer. The terrorists tried to reach for their weapon, but their arm moved with agonizing slowness as the armor's joints seized. They managed to turn toward Anya, revealing a face contorted with surprise and fury behind their breathing apparatus.
"You're supposed to be sealed in the forum,"
they snarled, voice distorted by both their breathing mask and their struggle against their increasingly rigid armor. "Sorry to disappoint," Anya replied, staying out of their limited range of motion. "Armor is rather restrictive in emergencies, I find." The operative made a final, desperate lunge toward the explosive device, but their movement was arrested mid-reach as their armor locked completely, transforming from protection to prison. They remained frozen in an awkward position, only their eyes still able to move freely, tracking Anya with undisguised hatred. With the immediate threat neutralized, Anya examined the device the operative had been installing. It was sophisticated, not just an explosive, but something more complex. Its casing was emblazoned with the same supernova insignia, and a display showed a deployment countdown nearing completion. She didn't dare tamper with it directly, but the interface panel was still exposed. Using the station's emergency protocols she'd memorized, she accessed the communication system. "This is Ambassador Petrova. I've intercepted a Starlight operative at Environmental Junction 42B. They've installed some kind of device in the life support systems. I need technical assistance immediately." The response was immediate.
"Ambassador?"
Chief Lentari's voice came through, surprise evident even through the translator.
"How did you... Never mind. Stay where you are. Technical team is en route. Do not attempt to disarm any devices."
"Understood," she replied. "But you should know, it's not just an explosive. There's a deployment timer, and it's nearly complete." There's a brief pause before Administrator Nor's voice joined the channel. "Petrova? We're seeing similar devices throughout the station. Engineering believes they contain weaponized nanites designed to infiltrate armor systems through ventilation filtration. Most delegates are fully sealed right now, which means their armor has already cycled contaminated air." Anya finished, the implications becoming clear. "They're not trying to destroy the station, they're trying to hijack the delegates through their own protection." "Precisely," Nor confirmed. "The armor becomes the weapon. Security teams are nearly at your position. They'll need access to that device to understand the dispersal mechanism." Anya looked at the countdown timer. Less than 2 minutes remaining. "I don't think we have time to wait." Making a decision, she examined the device more carefully. The casing was sealed, but the connector feeding into the station's ventilation was a standard coupling. With careful movements, she detached it from the system and redirected it into a maintenance waste chute designed for hazardous material disposal. "I've contained the device," she reported. "It's been disconnected from life support and redirected to a hazardous waste disposal chute." "That might buy us time," Nor responded. "But there are at least 3 other devices we've located. If even one deploys successfully—" The sound of the security team's arrival interrupted her. 4 officers in specialized containment gear emerged from the main corridor. Weapons trained briefly on the immobilized operative before shifting to secure the area.
"Ambassador?"
The lead officer acknowledged, surprise evident in their voice.
"Are you injured?"
"I'm fine," Anya assured them. "But we need to warn the delegates. If these devices deploy nanites designed to infiltrate armor—"
"Already working on it,"
the officer confirmed, gesturing to a technician who immediately began scanning the isolated device.
"Administrator Nor has ordered an emergency armor purge for all delegates, but many systems are locked in crisis mode."
"The forum's atmosphere should still be clean if the devices hadn't activated yet," Anya suggested. "If delegates can safely disengage their armor, they're—"
"That's the plan,"
the officer agreed.
"But many species have safety overrides that prevent opening armor in potentially hostile environments. And after these attacks—"
"Then we need to prove the environment is safe," Anya concluded. "Get me back to the forum." The journey back was considerably less covert, with the security team creating a protected corridor through the now secured maintenance sections. When they arrived at the forum's auxiliary entrance, Anya could see the chaos within. Most delegates remained partially or fully encased in their protective systems, security and medical personnel working frantically to override safety protocols. Administrator Nor spotted her immediately, breaking away from a cluster of technicians to approach. Her armor was partially disengaged, helmet retracted, but chest and limb protection still active. "How did you—" she began, then shook her head. "Never mind. The situation is contained for now, but we've got delegates whose armor safety systems won't disengage without proper authorization codes, and those systems may already be compromised." "What about Harvoth?" Anya asked, scanning the chamber for the Shalari representative. "His armor's diplomatic override requires Shalari High Command authorization. We've sent the request, but their protocols require verification that could take hours." Nor's expression was grim. "By then, if those nanites are what we think they are—" "Get me to him," Anya said decisively. Nor led her through the forum to where Magister Harvoth stood in statuesque immobility, his ceremonial battle plate fully engaged. Only his eyes moved behind his helmet's faceplate, tracking their approach with evident frustration. "Magister?" Anya addressed him, stepping close enough that his armor's external sensors would easily detect her. "The station has been attacked by the Starlight Purge. They've deployed devices containing nanites designed to infiltrate armor systems. Your safety protocols are preventing you from disengaging, but those same systems may be compromised." Harvoth's voice emerged from his armor's speaker, tense but controlled. "I am aware of the situation, Ambassador. Unfortunately, Shalari security protocols are absolute. After the assassination attempt on Praetor Ken, our systems require central verification before emergency disengagement. I am trapped by my own protection." Anya studied his armor, noting the intricate patterns that weren't merely decorative, but functional. Channels for energy distribution, connection points for systems integration. "Your armor," she said slowly, "it's ceremonial battleplate, correct? Based on historical Shalari designs?" "Indeed," he confirmed. "It honors the ancestral guard while incorporating modern protection." "Then it likely includes traditional override functions," Anya suggested. "Historical accounts mention the Breath of Trust protocol, a recognition system allowing allies to assist Shalari warriors when standard systems failed." Harvoth's eyes widened slightly behind his faceplate. "You are familiar with Shalari military history?" "Earth's diplomatic corps requires extensive cultural training," Anya explained, "especially regarding potential allies' historical precedents that might impact modern interactions." There was a pause as Harvoth seemed to consider her words. Finally, his external speaker emitted a sound like a sigh. "The protocol exists," he admitted. "Though it has not been invoked in generations, it would require you to manually access the primary connection node at the base of my armor's spine and enter a specific pattern of pressure points. It is an intimate procedure, traditionally performed only by battle-bonded companions." "These are extraordinary circumstances, Magister," Anya replied simply. "I believe they warrant extraordinary measures." After another moment of consideration, Harvoth spoke again. "Very well. Administrator Nor, please clear non-essential personnel from this area. This procedure requires discretion." Once relative privacy had been established, Harvoth provided precise instructions. The override sequence was complex. A specific pattern of pressure applied to nearly invisible recessed points along his armor's spinal column, combined with a verbal passphrase that had to be spoken in precise Shalari pronunciation. Anya followed his guidance exactly, her ungloved fingers able to detect the subtle differences in texture that marked each pressure point. As she completed the sequence and spoke the ancient Shalari phrase, roughly translated to, "I stand at your back, unarmed but steadfast," the armor emitted a series of musical tones. Slowly, the ceremonial battle plate began to disengage, plates separating along seams that had been invisible moments before. As the armor retracted, Harvoth stepped forward, his tall avian form now covered only in the simple undergarment worn beneath protective systems. He turned to face Anya, his crest feathers rising to their full, impressive height, a sign of extreme emotion in Shalari body language. "Ambassador Petrova," he said, his natural voice now unfiltered by translation systems, rich with harmonic overtones. "You have performed the Breath of Trust ceremony perfectly. By our oldest traditions, this creates a bond between us." He inclined his head in a formal gesture. "Your cultural knowledge is unexpected, and most appreciated under these circumstances." "Knowledge is often our best protection," Anya replied with a diplomatic bow. As the delegates were gradually freed from their armor through various technical and diplomatic interventions, the full scale of the Starlight Purge's plan became clear. The attack had been meticulously planned, the initial explosions merely a distraction for the true threat. Weaponized nanites designed to infiltrate armor systems and override their control mechanisms, effectively turning the delegates into hostages within their own protection. Emergency triage stations were established throughout the forum as technical teams worked to ensure no systems had been compromised before the plot was discovered. Administrator Nor coordinated the station-wide response while maintaining communication with the various delegation security teams. During a brief respite in the activity, Nor approached Anya, who was receiving a precautionary medical scan. "Initial analysis confirms our suspicions," Nor said, displaying a security report on her partially functioning armor's holographic projector. "The nanites were specifically designed to infiltrate and override armor systems. They would have given the Starlight Purge effective control over anyone sealed in protective gear." She shook her head slightly. "Your lack of armor didn't just allow your mobility, it rendered you immune to the most insidious aspect of the attack." "A fortunate coincidence," Anya replied. "Was it?" Nor asked, studying her with newfound curiosity. "Earth Central has some of the most sophisticated intelligence operations in known space. The timing of your traditional approach seems remarkably convenient." Anya merely smiled. "Earth believes in being prepared for various contingencies, and sometimes older methods prove unexpectedly relevant." The negotiations resumed 12 hours later in a hastily repurposed secondary chamber. The mood had shifted dramatically. Several delegates now appeared with portions of their armor deliberately deactivated or removed, a symbolic gesture acknowledging the human diplomatic stance. Security remained heightened, but the rigid protocols had been modified to allow greater flexibility based on individual risk assessment rather than blanket mandates. When Magister Harvoth entered, his appearance caused a ripple of surprise through the assembly. His ceremonial battleplate had been modified, the chest section now featuring a transparent panel revealing his feathered torso beneath, a significant cultural statement for a Shalari, whose military traditions emphasized complete protection. As the session began, Anya found the diplomatic landscape had shifted as dramatically as the physical one. Proposals that had previously met resistance were now being considered with genuine interest. The shared experience of vulnerability had created an unexpected bond among the various delegations. She used this momentum not to grandstand, but to drive forward key provisions for mutual defense and cultural exchange that had previously stalled. "True security," she suggested during a pivotal moment in the discussions, "might not always look the way we expect. The recent attack demonstrated that our traditional protections can become vectors for new threats. Perhaps our approaches to trade routes should similarly evolve beyond established assumptions." The Cygnus corridor access provisions were approved with unexpected speed, with additional amendments expanding the collaborative framework beyond what Earth had initially proposed. The Meridian Consortium, impressed by the human ability to navigate crises without technological augmentation, offered preferential treatment for Earth ships in their adjacent territories. The Galorn, whose representatives have been particularly vulnerable to the armor-based attack due to their environmental sensitivities, proposed a joint research initiative into alternative protection systems. In the final ratification ceremony 3 days later, a new protocol was established for the Interstellar Trade Commission. While security remained paramount, diplomatic missions now included designated trust representatives who might forego certain security measures to facilitate deeper cultural understanding. Ambassador Petrova became the first to be officially recognized under the new framework, with several other species cautiously beginning similar programs. As the delegations prepared to depart, Administrator Nor met with Anya in the station's observation deck, the stunning nebula visible through the vast viewing portal. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the swirling cosmic gases illuminate distant stars. Earth Central has asked me to develop training for the new Trust Representative program, Nor finally said, her armor now completely absent, replaced by the standard station administrator's uniform. Apparently, my first-hand experience with unconventional diplomatic approaches makes me uniquely qualified. Anya smiled. You'll be excellent at it. You understand both perspectives. I still think you were crazy, Nor admitted, turning to face her fully. Walking into a potentially hostile situation completely unprotected? But sometimes the galaxy needs a little human crazy. Anya gazed out at the nebula, its swirling colors reflecting in her eyes. It's not crazy to trust that what makes us vulnerable also makes us strong. She adjusted her diplomatic robes, once again the simple emerald green with subtle golden threading. Humanity learned that lesson centuries ago, when we nearly destroyed ourselves through fear and distrust. Our greatest advances came not when we built better armor, but when we were brave enough to extend an ungloved hand. And now the galaxy is learning it too, Nor observed, nodding toward a passing group of delegates, several of whom wore modified armor with transparent sections, a trend that had spread rapidly following the Shalari example. Not all lessons from ancient history are outdated, Anya replied. Sometimes the oldest wisdom proves the most relevant. A soft chime indicated Anya's shuttle was ready for departure. The two women shared a brief embrace before Anya stepped back, offering a formal bow. Until next time, Administrator. Safe journey, Ambassador Bearskin, Nor replied with a hint of a smile, using the informal nickname that had already begun circulating through diplomatic channels. As Anya made her way to the departure bay, she passed Magister Harvoth, who was overseeing the loading of Shalari diplomatic materials. He acknowledged her with a formal gesture, his modified armor gleaming under the station lights, transparent sections revealing the vibrant purple of his chest feathers. The Cygnus trade routes will see their first human vessels within the month, he said, his voice carrying the distinctive musical undertones of unfiltered Shalari speech. Your approach has proven effective, Ambassador Petrova. I look forward to a productive partnership, Magister, she replied. The corridor has room enough for all ambitions when we navigate it together. Indeed, his crest feathers rippled in what she now recognized as thoughtful consideration. The Shalari High Command has approved the expansion of our diplomatic training to include what they are calling selective vulnerability protocols. I believe you humans would call it a paradigm shift. An apt description, Anya agreed, though paradigms rarely shift easily. Or without risk, Harvoth added, his dark eyes studying her with newfound respect. Your willingness to bear that risk has been instructive. With a final formal acknowledgement, he returned to his duties, and Anya continued to her shuttle. As she settled into the commander's seat, she activated the communication panel, entering her security credentials to establish a direct, encrypted channel to Earth Central Command. Diplomatic Strategy Division. Ambassador Petrova reporting, she said once the connection shimmered into stability, the voice scrambler indicator glowing green. Mission parameters achieved. The Cygnus Corridor Access Agreement is ratified. Terms favorable, exceeding initial projections. The Trust Representative Initiative is established as anticipated. The response came after a carefully measured delay, the synthesized voice scrubbed of inflection but carrying an undercurrent of satisfaction. Acknowledged, Ambassador. Commendable execution. Analysis confirms the Starlight Purge assets deployed technology matching our threat assessments. The nanite vector was potent. A fractional pause. Their operational timing, while posing significant risk, ultimately proved advantageous to the proceedings. Unforeseen variables often create opportunities, Command, Anya replied, her tone professionally neutral, betraying nothing of the complex calculus behind that statement. The station's security forces neutralized the immediate threat effectively once the nature of the attack was understood. Indeed, preliminary reports indicate the primary purge cell operating in this sector had been neutralized or scattered. A convenient resolution to a persistent security nuisance, the voice responded. The Trust Representative Training Program is also being fast-tracked. Your first-hand account of navigating the crisis will be invaluable. There was another pause. Perhaps the closest the synthesized voice could come to wryness. It seems demonstrating vulnerability remains a potent diplomatic tool. A tool best wielded with careful calculation, Anya agreed, watching through the viewport as the shuttle disengaged from Ethelgard. The station lights dwindled against the swirling majesty of the nebula. As the shuttle's engines surged, spooling up for the jump back to Earth-controlled space, Anya caught a final glimpse of the station. It stood as a testament to cooperation, yes, but also a monument to the intricate, sometimes brutal, realities of interstellar politics. In its silhouette, she saw the future pathways of diplomacy, now subtly altered. Earth hadn't directly orchestrated the chaos, but they had certainly steered the consequences, turning a dangerous fire into a forge for their ambitions. The Starlight Purge was a problem. The stalled negotiations were a problem. Now, one problem had conveniently, if violently, solved the other.